Hello, hello! Pete's Pax here with Kamigawa Neon Dynasty Commander decks. Going to open these up and do a review. Split this into two videos. So, the two decks for Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. We have apparently a misprinted Katori, Pilot Prodigy. Let's see if we can get that to... There we go. Katori, Pilot Prodigy. And the other is... Shishiro, the Shattered Blade. We're going to start off with Shishiro. And the Upgrades Unleashed deck. Right. Now, this is the last commander deck that they did without the sample collector's boosters. It's one of the first where, well, no, it's not one of the first. It's like a year in them doing the fully recyclable packaging. So you get 9 tokens, or counters rather, that are foiled. Just punch out, and then you get a horizontal divider for the deck box that it comes with. Now, these deck boxes are fairly low quality cardboard. They tend to break on the top glue seam. We'll see if that happened with these or not. Alright. But on the bright side, all the packaging is recyclable. We have our pile of tokens. A little bit of dust generated from punching them out. Now, hey, this one actually has a solid glue seam. So this glue seam has a tendency to go bad. Well packaged. Have a filler piece and a two-sided life counter. So 20 through 40 on one side, or 21 through 40 on one side, and 1 through 20 on the other. This one apparently has a spirit dragon on one side. Cool. And there's an insert. Does a quick overview of the deck. Nice bit of art. Overview of the rules for Commander. And then on the other side, we have the overview of Shishiro. Or Chishiro. Not sure exactly how it's pronounced. I like Shishiro. Okay, who is the cover card? So whenever an aura or equipment enters the battlefield under your control, create a 2/2 red spirit creature with menace. At the beginning of your end step, put a +1/+1 counter on each modified creature you control. Equipment, auras you control, and counters are modifications. Okay. So kind of a pants strategy, as they're sometimes called. Or a power-up strategy. Okay. So we have Shishiro, the Shattered Blade, and an alternate commander, which would be Kaima, the Fractured Calm. So for 2, a red and a green, same cost as Shishiro, you get a 3/3. At the beginning of your end step, goad each creature your opponents control that's enchanted by an aura you control. Put a +1/+1 counter on Kaima, the Fractured Calm, for each creature goaded this way, so he gets real big. We have Orochi Merge Keeper, which is from Neon Dynasty, Invigorating Hot Springs from Neon Dynasty. I'm just going to go over the names from the cards that are reprints from the set. Tawashi Guidebot, Walking Skyscraper. Then we have Acidic Slime, good piece of general purpose green removal on a creature. Death Touch, when it enters the battlefield, destroy target artifact, enchantment, or land. Good old Beast Within. 3-drop instant, destroy target permanent. Its controller gets a 3/3 green beast. Fertid, or Fertilid. Comes into play with 2 +1/+1 counters, 1 and a green, remove a counter, a +1/+1 counter from it. Target player searches their library for basic land and puts it onto the battlefield tapped. There's a reprint from, I think Ikoria, might be Kaladesh. Pretty sure it's Ikoria. We have Hunter's Insight. You target a creature you control. Whenever that creature deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker this turn, draw that many cards. So, good way to ramp into lands. Kadama's Reach, a reprint from the original Kamigawa. So, search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, reveal them, put 1 in your hand and 1 on the battlefield tap, then shuffle. Loyal Guardian, Trample. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control your commander, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So a good way to turn all your creatures into modified. And we have Ordeal of Nylea. Enchant creature. Whenever enchanted creature attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Then if it has 3 or more +1/+1 counters, sacrifice Ordeal. When you sacrifice it, search your library for up to 2 basic lands, put them on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Rampant Growth, search your library for a basic land, put it on to play tapped. Steve, aka Sakura Tribe Elder, originally from Champions of Kamigawa. So it's a 1/1 for 2 that you can sacrifice to search your library for a basic land and put it onto the battlefield tapped. Shuffle. Snake Umbra. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has whenever this creature deals combat damage to an opponent, you may draw a card. Also has Totem Armor, which means if the creature would be destroyed, you remove all damage and destroy the aura instead. Let's see, Vastwood Surge. So for 3, with Kicker 4, search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. If the spell was kicked, put 2 +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. This was a reprint from Zendikar Rising, I believe. Drumgully the Generous. This is a reprint from Berneval Drain. Each other non-human creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. Mage Slayer, originally from I think either Shards of Alora or Alara Reborn. Might have been Confluence, but I'm pretty sure it was Alara Reborn. Whenever a creature attacks, it deals damage equal to its power to target player or planeswalker it's attacking. So it's a good way to double up damage. Rhythm of the Wild, this was in Ravnica Allegiance, I believe. Creature spells you control can't be countered. Non-token creatures you control have Riot. Good old Arcane Signet. Fire Shrieker, which gives double strike. Soul Ring, we all know what that does by now. Swiftfoot Boots, equip creature is hexproof and haste, equip 1. Command Tower, we should know what that does. Gruul Turf, it's one of the Karu lands for red-green. Opal Palace. Tap for a colorless, 1 and tap, filter to 1 of any color in your commander's color identity. If you spend it to cast your commander, it enters with a number of additional +1/+1 counters on it equal to the number of times it's been cast from the command zone this game. Now we have a couple of mountains, or 3 mountains. It's kind of odd in the sequencing. We have Aki Battle Squad. So for 6 mana, whenever one or more modified creatures you control attacks, untap modified creatures you control. After this combat, there's an additional combat phase. This ability only triggers once each turn. Okay. Collision of Realms. For 7 mana, each player shuffles all creatures they own into their library. Each player who shuffled a non-token creature into their library this way reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal a creature card, then puts that card onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of their library in a random order. We have Kami of Celebration. Whenever a modified creature, so 5 mana, whenever a modified creature you control attacks, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. Whenever you cast a spell from exile, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Oh, that actually could be really useful with the food chain combo. Commando Battle Armor. Menace. Equipped creature has +2/+2 in Menace. Whenever it or equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, goad each creature that player controls. And has reconfigure for 4. We have Smoke Spirit's Aid. X and a red. For each of up to X target creatures, create a red aura enchantment token named Smoke Blessing attached to those creatures. To that creature. Those tokens have enchant creature, and when enchanted creature dies, deals 1 damage to its controller, and you create a treasure token. Okay, that's interesting. Unquenchable Fury. So 3 mana enchantment. Enchanted creature has, whenever this creature attacks, it deals X damage to defending player, where X is the number of cards in their hand. When Unquenchable Fury is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, return it to your hand. Ascendant Acolyte. 5 mana. When it enters the battlefield with +1/+1 counter on it for each +1/+1 counter among other creatures you control. At the beginning of your upkeep, double the number of +1/+1 counters on Ascendant Acolyte. It's nuts. Concord with the Kami. At the beginning of your end step, choose 1 or more. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature with a counter on it. Draw a card if you control an enchanted creature. Create a 1/1 colorless spirit token if you control an equipped creature. Keep in mind you can do multiple of those. Kosei Penitent Warlord. Sorry. As long as Kosei Penitent Warlord is enchanted, equipped, and has a counter on it, it has, whenever it deals combat damage to an opponent, you draw that many cards, and Kosei deals that much damage to each other opponent. Wow. One with the Kami. Flash, enchant creature you control. Whenever enchanted creature or another modified creature you control dies, create X 1/1 colorless spirit creature tokens where X is that creature's power. That would be very good with Food Chain. Rampant Rejuvenator enters the battlefield. So for 4 mana, when it enters the battlefield with 2 +1/+1 counters on it. When it dies, search your library for up to X basic lands where X is its power, put them onto the battlefield, then shuffle. Keep in mind this does not say tapped, this is onto the battlefield. Silk Guard. X and a green, instant. Put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to X target creatures you control. Aura's equipment and modified creatures you control gain hexproof until end of turn. So this can be used even if X is 0. Tanuki Transplanter, 4 mana. It's an equipment dog. When it or equipped creature attacks, add an amount of green equal to its power. Until end of turn, you don't lose mana as steps and phases end. 1 moment. Okay. Agitator Ant. At the beginning of your end step, each player may put 2 +1/+1 counters on each creature they control. Goad each creature that had counters put on it this way. Until your next turn, those creatures attack each combat if able, and attack a player other than you if able. So good until it comes down to one player, or you and another player. Chain Reaction. So 4 mana sorcery, deals X damage to each creature where X is the number of creatures on the battlefield. So a Super Sweeper. Good old Chaos Warp. The owner of target permanent shuffles it into their library, then reveals the top card of their library. If it's a permanent card, they put it onto the battlefield. Okay. Elemental Mastery. Enchant creature for 4. Enchanted creature as tap. Create X 1/1 red elemental creature tokens with haste, where X is the creature's power. Exile them at the beginning of the next end step. So this could be used in a different deck alongside something like Intruder Alarm to create infinite tokens. So, Goblin Raise Runners, 4 mana, 1 and a red, sacrifice a land, put a +1/+1 counter on it. At the beginning of your end step, you may have it deal damage equal to the number of +1/+1 counters on its target player or planeswalker. Brinko, 10th Street Kingpin. 3 mana, when it attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on it, then create a number of 1/1 red goblin creature tokens equal to its power. Ox of Agonis. Great reprint from, well, multiple of these are reprints, but this was from Theros Beyond Death. When it enters the battlefield, discard your hand, then draw 3 cards. Then you can escape it for 2 and exile 8 other cards from your graveyard. When it escapes, it comes into play with a +1/+1 counter on it. Gifting Shadow. 3 mana enchantment. Enchant creature. It has haste, and at the beginning of your upkeep, destroy this creature. Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card. Put that card onto the battlefield and attach Shifting Shadow to it, then put all other cards revealed this way on the bottom of your library in a random order. So Starstorm, X Red Red. This is originally from like Onslaught, I think. Deals X damage to each creature and has cycling 3 on an instant. Tarian Mauler. So 2 and a red for a shapeshifter, changeling. That's every creature type. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, you may put a +1/+1 counter on Tarian Mauler. Bear Umbra. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature has +2/+2, and whenever this creature attacks, untap all lands you control, and it has totem armor. This is often used in Boggle's strategies. Champion of Lamholt. Creatures with power less than Champion of Lamholt's power can't block creatures you control. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Champion of Lamholt's. It's for 3 mana. Forgotten Ancient. Whenever a player casts a spell, you may put a +1/+1 counter on Forgotten Ancient. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may move any number of +1/+1 counters from Forgotten Ancient onto other creatures. Genesis Hydra. When you cast a spell, reveal the top X cards of your library. You may put a non-land permanent with mana value X or less from among them onto the battlefield, then shuffle the rest into your library. It comes into play with X +1/+1 counters on it. That's X green. Very good way to turn through your deck and get your biggest thing, basically. Primeval Protector. It's for 11 mana. The spell costs 1 less for each creature your opponents control. When it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each other creature you control. So another good way of modifying all your creatures. Rishkar, Pima Renegade. When it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 creatures, and each creature you control with a counter on it has tap at a green. So very good way of building up mana to ramp out your big stuff. Rishkar's Expertise. Draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. You may cast a spell with mana value 5 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. So you have Shamanic Revelation, which conveniently costs 1 less, which is draw a card for each creature you control, and then Ferocious, you gain 1 life, or you gain 4 life for each creature you control with power 4 or greater. It's a good way to make big swings. Soul's Majesty, draw cards equal to the power of target creature you control. For 5 mana, so that also works with Rishkar. So, Rishkar's Expertise. We have Spearbreaker Behemoth. This is originally from Shards of Allura, if I remember correctly. So for 7 mana, you get an indestructible 5/5 beast. Target creature with power 5 or greater gains indestructible until end of turn for 1 mana. We have Whip-Tongue Hydra. It enters the battlefield, destroy all creatures with flying, put a +1/+1 counter on it for each creature destroyed this way. We have Decimate, destroy target artifact, target creature, target enchantment, and target land. Ulashed, the Hate Seed. So for 4 mana, you get a Hellion Hydra. When it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each other red creature you control, and a +1/+1 counter for each other green creature you control. 1 and remove a counter from it. To choose one, deal 1 damage to target creature, or create a 1/1 green sapperling creature token. Blackblade Reforged. 2 mana enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each land you control. Equip legendary for 3, equip for 7. Bone Horde, 4 mana living weapon. Equipped creature gets +X/+X, where X is the number of creature cards in all graveyards. So pretty solid. Sword of Vengeance. Equipped creature gets +2/+0 and has first strike, vigilance, trample, and haste. Equip 3. We have some lands. Cinderglade. It's one of the buddy lands, and it is tutorable as a mountain forest. Exotic Orchard. Game Trail. Mossfire Valley. 2 Mossfire Valleys. Okay, so there's definitely a misprint here. Oran Reef, the Vast Wood. Raging Ravine. Nice. It's one of the manlands. Temple of Abandon. Mountain. Let's see, some more mountains. Several miscuts in this. Some fairly severe, too. Bunch of forests. I get the cardboard Shishiro. A treasure token. There's also a smoke blessing. Goblin smoke blessing. An elemental spirit. A smoke blessing spirit. A beast treasure. A spirit treasure. Plant treasure. Sapperling spirit. A spirit. 2 different kinds of spirit. Then a Phyrexian germ spirit. And a turn reminder. So overall, pretty cool, buff strategy here. I'm a little concerned by the double print Mossfire Valley, that I might be missing something, but I don't know, it's just very strange. And then quite a few of these cards are miscut, so that is interesting. But yeah, not a bad deck. Could definitely be powered up a bit. Like Kodama of the West Tree would be pretty cool in this. Food Chain and something Scourge would be fantastic in this. Or just the Squee that you can cast from anywhere, plus Food Chain would also go really well with this. And a bit more fast mana would be nice, but overall not bad. Something like Genesis Wave would be fantastic for this. Green Sun Zenith, the standard stuff that you want to add to green-red kind of strategies. Yeah. As always, thank you for joining me on this one. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe. And until next time, stay awesome. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.